That's right. Carolyn may be bringing our dog home any moment now. I better mute.
No, that's a good point. I can do that.
Hello, everyone.
Join the meeting.
Everyone doing well? Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
we hear you fine.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure.
Okay, right now we're live. We're just a couple of minutes away from beginning the meeting. It is an awesome summer day here in Big Canoe, 79 degrees, a little breeze. All the pontoon boats are out on Lake Pettit, and it's 5 p.m.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. I'd like to begin our monthly board meeting this afternoon by sharing some sad news. Bill Byrne, who had been the developer here since 1987, passed away today after a long illness, and Bob Crouch would like to make a few comments.
Thank you, Candace. Yes, you're right. This is sad news of the passing of Bill. Longtime residents obviously are very familiar with Bill's contributions to Big Canoe. And I had the honor and the privilege of serving on the board with Bill for several years, starting with the transition from the developer to property owner control of the board in 2005. And I was able to observe firsthand of Bill's care and dedication for Big Canoe. Some of the transition documents had some errors in them that weren't in the best interest of the developer to fix them, but Bill, when I asked him to make them right, unfailingly did that, made them right. His love for Big Canoe can be demonstrated by just one small example of, we were going to relocate a roundabout, a road, and in the middle of that road was a beautiful Japanese maple, and Bill said, "You are not moving that. You are not going to destroy that. You are going to save that tree," and it was saved. Bill's visitation will be on the 29th from 6 to 8 at the H.M. Patterson Funeral Home, and his service is going to be on the 30th at 2 p.m. at the Holy Spirit Catholic Church. We'll miss Bill a lot. He was a good guy.
Thanks, Bob. Well, our agenda will get underway tonight, first with Scott's administrative report, and then in our financial matters, Scott will begin that section talking about financials, followed by Amy's treasury report, and then a review of our 2020 audit, and with John Schultz from Malden and Jenkins, and then followed by Vince Walsh, chair of our audit and risk committee, with some comments. And then next we'll have a sales report from Jenna Lackey. And then under the business section, there's just a variety of topics and approvals and ratifications that we have tonight. And then our last topic will be discussion on short-term rental properties, and we'll adjourn and open it up to questions. So Scott, take it away.
Thank you. Perfect. Next slide, guys. Thank you. That handsome, very intense look there is from Mike Miller. Mike, if you haven't met him yet, is our new head golf professional. He's already kind of making a lot of good impressions around Big Canoe. You can also refer to him as Mr. Mayor, because he is the current mayor of Flowery Branch, Georgia, which is a long, interesting story if you ever get a chance to talk to Mike about that. But we welcome him. There was a great search that was put on. A lot of property owners from the various golf committees and the golf operations were involved with that. And we're delighted to have Mike as part of our team. Next slide. And our most recent hire is a lady named Catherine Dye. She works over here in Mark De La Vina's communications group. Catherine, or Cat as she is called, or likes to be called, is our digital communications specialist. And this goes back about 1.5 years when there was a Leadership Big Canoe project that was looking at all of our marketing communications and how we needed to communicate better with property owners. And certainly email was one key area, and the result of that is the Inside the Gates email that we send out every Thursday afternoon. Another key area was doing a better job on Facebook, and that has started, but Catherine's going to take over from here. And the other key area is our website, and our website is challenging on a good day. There is no search function on it for lots of old reasons that we need to take care of. And Catherine's going to be leading the charge on revamping our website. So we are excited to have Catherine on board. Next slide. So this is now the newly named and newly created package porch. And the next slide shows you the grand opening that happened this month. Yes, those are incredibly big scissors, and they're pointed right at my chin. And they're pointed by a lady named Delene Ferris. And Delene was one of 2 co-winners for the naming of the package porch. So we are standing on the steps there of the package porch. So far, I think it's a pretty rousing success. We're running about 100 packages a day through there, which is kind of amazing to me, given that it's summertime. So you can imagine what it will be like this fall. I would say that reaction has been really positive. There's a few operational things we still need to work out with the U.S. Postal Service about why certain packages don't end up in the package porch and are still ending up the hill. But we are setting up a meeting with the postmaster again in a couple of weeks. And we kind of knew this was going to happen. We wanted to get started, get the feel for how the operation was working, and then fine tune it. So I think we're off to a great start, and we'll make it better from here. Next slide. And there you see, this was Amy, the very first day of the very first green slip that basically said, come on down to the hill, you have a package. And the next slide is, we just happened to be in there taking these pictures. And it took literally 30 seconds before the first property owner was there saying, where is my Amazon Prime package? So like I said, a lot of volume is moving through there, and it's working really well so far. So next slide. Another grand opening. People are teasing me that we're doing a lot of grand openings, but they're really, really fun. And this one happens to be at the following place. This is our new long-awaited Bocce Facility. And you can see the beautiful, flat, well-groomed courts compared to what we had before, and the fact that everything is made with Trex, so it's maintenance-free, and you've got beautiful sunshade structures built in, so nobody has to cook when they're out there. And it was a really fun night, as attributed by the next slide. Somebody tells me that his name is Bullet Bob. I don't know where the bullet came from, but I was smart. I had played bocce twice in my life. Both times I selected Mr. Crouch as my partner, and both times I won. And it's because of Bullet Bob here. It has nothing to do with my skills at bocce, which have a long, long, long way to go. But anyhow, it was a great night. Everybody had a good time, and we are really happy that that is done and behind us and open. Next slide. 4th of July, it's almost here. It's hard to believe. Thank heavens it's back. I feel like we lost a year of our lives there. We will be having the infamous start of the 4th of July weekend, which will occur on Saturday, July 3rd, which opens with the big canoe tradition of the dog park celebration day. So there will be a parade of dogs in their finest livery. And yes, you can match the dogs and dress up too. But that'll kick off on Saturday morning, the 3rd. Next slide. And then Terry and the P&E committee are just gonna wow you, I think, all afternoon, starting around 11 o'clock in Playfield Park. That's where we will be again. That's kind of the heart there of Big Canoe, right in the center. And lots and lots of fun, exciting things. So for all of you who are not here, who have never seen a 4th of July celebration at Big Canoe, it's a blast. So please come. It's a lot of fun all day long. And that'll culminate on Saturday night with a concert at the Terraces, which I'm sure will sell out and fill up very, very, very quickly. And then last but not least, on Sunday night, yes, there it is. We have a great fireworks presentation. So I was amazed the first 2 years that I was here about how good Big Canoe fireworks are. So this year promises to be equally good. And for 1 year only, it will be back at Lake Pettit. And so we will be shooting fireworks from the dam area. And again, all the Playfield Park will be an awesome place to see that, or the chapel lots and all of those areas will be great, great places to see the fireworks from. So that is on Sunday night, July 4th. Next slide. This is not as much fun, but honestly equally joyous. Hard to believe the picture on the left is joyous, but it really is joyous. So this was Lake Disharoon about a week ago. What you see there is a high density polyethylene 24-inch inner diameter 250-foot long pipe being sleeved inside of our ancient overdue for age corrugated metal pipe. So when it worked, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Somehow there's some rumor running around that the pipe failed or something. No, the pipe is great. It's exactly where it's supposed to be. It's sticking out of both ends of the dam. It carried a ton of water for us over the weekend, about 5.1 inches in a day and a half. And so the picture on the right is after we finished sleeving the old corrugated metal pipe. There you see it actually coming out of the bottom end of the dam. And those little tubes that go around it, the white ones, thank you, are where we will be injecting the concrete grout. It's basically like a concrete filler that will totally surround the diameter, the outer diameter of the new pipe, and lock it in place and make sure that even though the corrugated pipe continues to decay over the next coming years, it won't matter because you've got a new pipe nicely encased all the way through the dam in concrete. The problem is we just need like 3-4 days where it doesn't rain. And I don't know about you, I feel like I moved to the Pacific Northwest. I mean, like Tim said, it's cool today. It's too cold for me to go swimming, and it just rains all the time. So we tentatively have the grouting scheduled for early next week, early mid next week. And once that's done, and it can set up for a couple days, we will slowly begin refilling Lake Disharoon, which will lead to the next slide, which looks like that. Yes, that is what it should be looking like right now. And God willing, and prayers are welcome, sun dances, any Indian traditional things that anyone knows of, chants are okay. Whatever it takes to get 3-4 days of sunshine here will get us to this relatively quickly. So we are still targeting mid-July to be safe for getting things back in place. And we have been taking advantage of this. Yes, that's what it should look like. And we will be recoating the rock slide in the next week or so also to make sure that that is ready to go. So fingers, toes, arms, everything crossed except eyes. We are trying our best to make sure we can return the entire beach club to operation by mid-July. No promises yet. A lot depends on weather, but if we can do it, we're going to do it. So that's the plan. So far, so good. Pray for sun. Next slide. And this is kind of good news as well. We've been talking, I'll be Regis tonight, although I don't have the right look. But anyway, I'll be Regis tonight and talk about the strategic plan update. And we've been talking about this for a while, going back to old leadership big canoe classes. We don't have an up-to-date strategic plan. And quite honestly, if we ever had a strategic plan, it wasn't really actionable. It wasn't drilled down to specific strategies and tactics that my team would be doing and that we would be measuring on and communicating to the community and things like that. So we are building that. That is one of the key things that was a key board initiative and a key Scott initiative for this year. So we went out and hired a group called T4 Associates to help us capture the true voice of the community. And you know, you could say, oh my gosh, oh heavens, it's Big Canoe again. Why are we hiring a consultant? The reason we're hiring a consultant, we wanted to make sure that this time the strategic plan was not made up of 5, 6, 7 people sitting in a boardroom someplace and saying, I think we should do this. We wanted to hear what the community said we should do and take all that data, statistical, good, quantitative data, not about what projects we should do or any of that kind of stuff, but what should the community be? What's our hopes? What's our dreams? Where do we want to be over the next 10, 15, 20 years? And that's what T4 is putting together for us. The first step was to meet with, do a focus group with the board, do a focus group with my staff, and do a focus group with the strategic planning committee, which Regis has talked about multiple times. And that's all made up of a great cross section of property owners that went through an interview process and everything to get on that committee. So that was all done on Monday of this week. They took all that information home. They're coming up with a questionnaire. The first thing they're going to do is qualitative research, which will be some 25 to 30 phone calls. Each one will probably take about half an hour. I went through the questions this afternoon and they're good. They're well structured. They talk about the trade-off between desires and cost and how much do you want to invest in your community and how fast do we want to move and do we want to be Motel 6 or do we want to move more towards the Ritz-Carlton? All of that is in there, which is what they heard on Monday. And so that will lead to eventually a quantitative questionnaire survey that everybody in the community will get to take, and that will occur towards the end of July. And then all those results will come back and be presented to the community in August or early September. That will then spawn a whole series of actions that my team starts to take to say, how do we take those hopes and dreams and goals and turn them into specific tactics that we can start doing in 2021, 2022, 2023, and what kind of investment do we need in that type of thing. So it's really exciting. If you don't know if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a vision on where you want to go, you're never going to get there. So this is the first step to get there. So it's good. Next slide. And you can just keep going there, Justin. Thank you. And speaking of good, we finished another very, very strong financial month in the month of May. This is the amenity net income, and we'll talk about variance against budget first. Clubhouse was $48,000 to the good for May versus our original budget. That takes us to $131,000 to the good versus 2020 in May. Golf had another strong month, $31,000 to the good versus budget. Wellness Center is now back on track, which is great. That's what we were hoping to see as we could kind of get back to normal in the Wellness Center. Memberships are coming back up. People are starting to use things a lot more. Racquet Club had a variance, and believe it or not, that's water. That's a water bill. And the reason is when you renovate a golf course, you put in new irrigation. When you put in new irrigation, you have to reconfigure all those pipes. The tennis courts, the clay courts, need watering. That's part of what you do with a clay court. That water comes from the golf course. So unfortunately, in order to keep the clay courts operational and groomed and everything that they're supposed to do, we needed to use potable, UIG water. That's a little more expensive than when we take it out of our own lake. So that's a variance there on the Racquet Club. Swim, you're going to see that obviously look a lot more negative in June. That's because of the Lake Disharoon mess that we're cleaning up. And Marina had a good month, and amenity management roughly on plan. So we're 83,000 to the good versus budget for May. And what I'd like to say a little bit more detail about the clubhouse, the actual number that goes with that variance is the clubhouse had $264,000 of revenue in the month of May versus a plan of $241,000. And just for comparison, forget COVID, because that was like a weird year and you can't compare against it. But if you go back to 2019, it was 203,000. So 264 this year versus 203 in 2019 in the same month. So sometimes I see weird stuff, actually many times I see weird stuff on Facebook, but sometimes I see weird stuff on Facebook about the clubhouse, like, oh, we're cutting our way to success and all that kind of stuff. No, it's 264,000 of revenue against a plan of 241, which is higher than the 203 that we had in 2019. So Clubhouse did really well in the month of May. Golf rounds are at 11,150 year to date versus a 94.23 budget through May. So golf continues to be extremely strong, which is kind of a miracle given the rain lately and also the fact that we have 18 holes. So people are putting up with an awful lot and getting an awful lot of rounds in on 18 holes instead of 27. So people are also really excited. The folks who are going out with Lydell, many of whom aren't even golfers, and who are looking at the renovation, it's going to be dynamite. When Creek 9 is done, people are going to be massively excited. So Bill Bergen definitely knows what he's doing. So next slide. Food and beverage key metrics, working from the bottom up. That is a real number, not a variance. So we made, yes, we made $77,139 in the month of May in food and beverage. That's our net income. Therefore, our cost per sales is less than $1. So it's 71 cents. So we make 29 cents basically on every dollar that we sold in the month of May. So we're a positive $77,000 in the month of May. Operating costs a little bit higher than budget because we did an awful lot of weddings and banquets in the month of May. We don't have any more scheduled until the fall, and we're going to try to do those outside so we don't have to shut down the clubhouse as often because we hate it when we do that, as much as you hate it when we do that. So operating costs are a little bit higher. Payroll costs continue to be well under. I saw an article today. There is $1.7 million restaurant jobs that can't be filled right now in the United States, and we make up 8 of those. So we're missing 8 front of house positions out of the 1.7 million that people can't fill. So we just keep hoping. I think we're starting to get a little more traction now that some of the stimulus programs are winding down in Georgia and things like that. We hope that will continue to ease up. Cost of sales was beautiful and right where it should be. So if you look at the full year, it's worth taking a second and looking at that. Look at the actual column under year to date. Our total loss for the clubhouse for the year is $25,000. The budget was $207,000 loss. So when we remember back to 2019 and losing $780,000 and that kind of thing, year to date through May, we've lost $25,000. So amazing improvement. Now, are we done? No, we're not done. We kind of stopped the bleeding. We've got a lot of inventory things in control. We've got a lot of great processes in the back of the house in control. We're now worried about working on the front of the house. How do we take the service level up? How do we take the presentation of the dining room up? How do we just start moving more and more from Courtyard Marriott towards Ritz-Carlton? And we need to keep moving in that direction without sacrificing these numbers. And that's the strategy that Robert and Brett are working on. So, but good numbers, I like them. Next slide. May financial summary. So this is the total business of the POA. General operating revenue, basically right on plan, nothing to talk about there. Operating expenses are $29,000 to the good in May. That is largely in one area, which is public works and housekeeping. 7,200 of that was due to road impact and storage yard revenue. So as we do a lot of construction here, we benefit from road impact fees. So that helps. 7,300 was a variance in payroll. Public works is almost totally staffed. And actually golf maintenance is doing really well too. So really the only problem we have left is we're still a little bit short of front of the house over at the club, but everything else is looking pretty good. And then bottom line, this is kind of interesting. Our garbage is running $9,800 to the good in the month of May. And you say, well, how can that be? We think it's a combination of two things. Number one, you're not in COVID anymore, so people are starting to travel and get out more and leave house. And last year, everybody was in lockdown, eating pizza and binge watching Netflix. So it led to a lot of garbage. That's not as much this year. Second thing is we did put the gates in. So we're keeping folks out of the garbage facility that aren't authorized to be in the garbage facility. So we're getting some positive variance there on our garbage collection. So that accounts for most of the operating expense. Amenity net income, we already talked about, was an $83,000 to the good. And asset gain loss, there's about a $12,000 difference associated with when we did the clay lift, when we did the reclaying of the clay courts in tennis. That was a little sooner than the original life of the clay courts had been, the old clay courts had been laid out. So therefore you take a little bit of a financial hit when you, it's depreciation basically that has to drop here. So net income from operations is $102,000 to the good versus budget, and $517,000 ahead of plan through 5 months of the year. So, you know, not quite halfway through the year yet, but we're tracking 517 to the good through the end of May. So that is awesome news, I think, for the POA. Next slide. And I always show you all this just to say, how are we doing this month? Because by the time we do this meeting, we're already fairly completed with the following month. So as of 6/20, Clubhouse is definitely ahead of plan for the month of June, and that did not have the member guest revenue in it yet, so that'll help even more. Golf was slightly behind plan. You're going to see some weather impacts this month. Again, member guest isn't in there yet though, so that will help. Wellness is ahead of plan, so that's what we were hoping was going to happen, and it is. As we relax, you know, our restrictions were back to normal, so that's good. Racquet Club is doing fine. Marina's having a really strong month, so that's great to see. And as I mentioned, this is where our variance is going to be aquatics. You know, we did not have the heart or the right to charge people for the full aquatics membership when all we had open was another pool. And even though we bring the beach club back, sun, God willing, please, sunshine, as soon as we can do that in July, we're not gonna raise the aquatics fee. You guys have been through enough, so we'll just keep the same billings for aquatics for the rest of the year, and that's okay because it'll just be nice to get back to having some fun there. So total amenities through 6/20 is 7872 to the good, and again, that's without the member guest tournament results being in there. So that concludes the financial report from me. I'd like to turn it over to our treasurer, Amy, to talk about the cash situation. Amy?
Seems like old times.
It does indeed. There you go.
By now, most everybody's probably read Tuesday night's response from the board regarding the misinformation about $1 million that might be missing from the restricted reserve fund. I won't go through that again right now. A link was attached to that message with a lengthy explanation and will also be attached to these minutes. This evening, I'm going to review the highlights from the May balance sheet. Got that up there, okay. Jane, or can we go down to the bottom of the screen? Let me see. Can you show the ratios? Is it possible to see? Okay, thank you. First, I just wanted to point out the long-term debt is down about $1 million from May 31 of 2020, down to 5.5 in 2021. And I also wanted to point out our healthy debt to equity, which I can see in the operating cash ratio. There it goes, a 0.83. Thank you. Okay, moving back up to cash, where I'm going to spend most of the time. Operating cash is 2.63 mil. This is where our regular expenses on the P&L, like payroll and maintenance, property taxes, they're all reflected. And prior to the middle of 2020, routine capital expenditures were also paid out of here, like vehicles, road paving, things like that. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Move down to the next line, board designated master plan funds. This account is used for just what it says, master plan items like the Creek 9 golf course rejuvenation and Chimneys Meeting Center renovation, and any other large projects that might occur in the future out of the master plan. It's funded through capital contribution fees collected from the sale of homes from the CCF instituted earlier this year, and the $25 a month capital component in your general assessments, which started in January of 2020. Should shortages occur in the future, they could be alleviated by a variety of methods: transfers from surplus operating cash, capital replacement funds, borrowing from ourselves against the restricted reserve, borrowing against our line of credit, getting a new loan, increasing assessments over time, which will undoubtedly happen anyway due to inflation or other services, special assessments voted on by property owners, or just delaying projects. So lots of options. Moving down to the capital replacement fund, 1.6 million. As I mentioned a minute ago, prior to the middle of 2020, all routine capital was paid out of operating cash. Now it's not. In years which we didn't do certain projects, that operating cash balance grew, and that was not necessarily a good thing because it meant something probably got deferred. But these days, an amount equal to annual depreciation is transferred into this account, and if any other funds come in from another account, like it did this year, it's recommended by the Finance Committee and voted on during a public board meeting. This replacement fund is one of the two that was included in the 2021 Capital Reserve Study, along with the Master Plan Fund. Similar to last year, we transferred 2020 year-end surplus operating cash, and this year it went into this replacement fund. That amount was $1,068,365, and it was added to the year-end replacement fund balance of $796, which totaled $1.864 that was reflected in the capital reserve study. When that transfer actually occurred in April, for convenience, it was just rounded up to 1.1 million. So simultaneously, operating cash was decremented by this amount, and you can easily see this if you compare March and April operating cash ratios, which go from 1.15 in March down to 0.85 in April. The final cash account is the Restricted Capital Reserve Fund, totaling 2.830 at the end of May. We started the year at about 2.826, so it's just a little higher now due to interest and fair market value entries. It's not reflected in the 2021 Capital Reserve Study, unlike in 2016. At that time, the POA only had this one account, but now we have three. It's never been used since its inception in 2010, and because of the 3-year repayment obligation, it would be unwieldy to account for if used for routine capital expenditures. Therefore, it's no longer reflected in the Capital Reserve Study, although the funds are very much alive and well. Just a few last comments on the reserve study itself. Our covenants require that we do this every 3 to 5 years. And a summary of estimated future repairs and replacements is contained in our audited financial statements as supplementary information required by accounting standards. It is not a basic financial statement per se, but it does provide management a roadmap for capital expenditures that may be required by the association over many years. Before I turn things back to Candace, I want to ask John Schultz, partner from Malden and Jenkins, who just happens to be here tonight presenting the annual audit, if in his opinion, the POA is missing or overstating our cash position.
Thank you, Amy. And to answer that, the answer is absolutely not. We have reviewed all the cash accounts as part of our audit procedures, and there is no evidence whatsoever that $1 million is missing. I will go ahead and add, it is nearly impossible for that amount of money to be missing because of the controls that are in place. The association has very good controls where any expenditure, there's various levels, but require dual approval. And at a certain amount, the board has to approve it. So the amount that is mentioned of $1 million, it is nearly impossible that it was spent and there was no evidence. I do use the word nearly. It's an auditor terminology because the only way that is possible would be collusion. And for those related or familiar with fraud, collusion is highly unlikely to take place because multiple people would have to be involved. And again, there's no evidence of that whatsoever.
Thank you. Candace, back to you.
John, do you want to proceed with just a review of the financial statements for 2020?
Sure, thank you. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. Let's see. All right. Good afternoon to to the board and all the property owners. For those who are not familiar, I am John Schultz. I was the engagement partner on this year's audit. I'm a partner with Malden and Jenkins, and I specialize in our not-for-profit and association practice. I quickly just wanted to go over the professional services that we provided. I'm sure everybody knows by now, but we were engaged to complete a financial statement audit on the association's financial report for the year ending and as of December 31st, 2020. We also prepared the association's IRS tax returns. There's actually two. One is the Form 990. That is the standard informational return because the association is classified as a not-for-profit and all not-for-profits have to file that. And then the Form 990T is very common across associations, and that is actually related to your unrelated business income. And long story short, the association has always had that because the association actually makes money or revenue from people that are not considered property owners or visitors. So that there's a portion of the clubhouse sales of food and beverage, the golf for all visitors that is considered under IRS regulations to be unrelated business income. And there's a separate tax return that is required to be filed. And then the last thing we provide is ballot counting services. This year was a little bit unusual because there were so many. There was actually 4. The first one was back in February. It was, if everybody remembers, there was a board of directors, we call it a revalidation election. The second was the Creek non-initiative vote. The third was the standard board of directors election. And then right before year end, there was a capital contribution fee vote. And then we quickly wanted to go over the summary of our audit results. We just wanted to let everybody know that the status of the audit, we are complete with our procedures and merely waiting on the approval of the board to finalize. Just so everybody knows, once we get that approval, we schedule what is called the quality control review, where another partner within our firm will actually review the financial statements and make sure they're in agreement with all the GAAP requirements. We did want to note that we've already met with the audit committee earlier this month, actually June 9th, and we had a great discussion and went in a lot more detail of the financial report and our audit results. I did want to make the comment that I was very impressed with the audit committee. So whoever had committee selections this year, kudos to you. It's in the association and not-for-profit world, you're lucky to have on an audit committee maybe one person that has a accounting background, let alone a CPA. And I think this committee had multiple, and we had great dialogue and they had great comments that we actually incorporated into the financial report. One thing I did want to mention, this comes up a lot, and we just wanted to clarify. So the financial statements or the financial report is the property of the association. The only thing that is our property is our opinion. And how that works is all the information that is in the financial statements, including the footnote and disclosures, is actually provided from the association. Jane and her team provided, we take all that information and we essentially drop it in a GAAP financial statement template. The one thing I did want to point out, and Amy did a great job explaining this earlier, but we just wanted to bring it to your attention. If you look at our audit opinion, when the audit report is released, you'll see the last paragraph actually brings to the attention of the financial statement reader that we provide or perform limited assurance on the required supplemental information, and therefore we do not actually issue an opinion on the supplemental. I just wanted to explain that a little bit, that because the nature of the fees or the future reserve study is an estimate and is based on assumptions and really a projection over a 30-year period, it is impossible for any auditor to actually perform audit procedures on that. We do limited procedures where we review it and incorporate in what we think of ticking and tying that information into the financial report. And any association that you look at, you will see that no auditor actually will issue an opinion on the supplemental, and that is why. The scope of our audit scope is consistent with the original plan. Part of our audit process, we're continually reassessing the need to change our plan throughout the audit. We did so for this audit engagement, and it did not change as I previously mentioned. As a result, we believe that the association's analysis of significant accounting matters is appropriate. There were no material misstatements that were identified. And I'll go a step further. There were actually no misstatements, material or immaterial, this year. And misstatements, all we're referring to there is audit adjustments. So that would really tell the board as well as the property owners that the books are very clean and great condition. And because of there is no material misstatements or misstatements at all, there were what we refer to as no reportable audited deficiencies that were identified and noted. And the last thing we just wanted to mention, our report, or really our audit opinion, is in accordance with all the requirements of the AICPA clarified auditing standards. And the section reference for all those CPAs out there is actually noted here, 705 and 706. And that's a quick overview of the audit results. Are there any questions or comments?
Okay. Well, under our last section in financial matters, Vince, would you like to make some comments about the audit?
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Vince Walsh, and I'm the chairman of the Audit and Risk Committee. And first of all, I'd like to thank the members of my committee. I think we've got a wonderful team, and they provide a tremendous amount of help and assistance with our assignments. What I'd like to do is I'd like to talk a little bit about what our committee does in connection with the audit of our annual financial statements. We first of all, prior to the beginning of the audit, meet with the auditors to understand the planning of the audit. We also discuss when they anticipate starting the audit, their audit work, and when they anticipate completing it and presenting us with our financial statements. We also review the firm's independence and discuss their latest peer review. A peer review is a review conducted by another CPA firm. And in this case, they review Mulden & Jenkins quality controls for their accounting and auditing practices. Their controls were found to be suitably designed to be capable of doing the work that we require. We also review their independence. It's extremely important that we have auditors who are independent with regard to our association and are capable of rendering opinions and decisions independent of any influence of our association. At the conclusion of the audit, we discuss their opinion, which will be a non-qualified report. That is to say, their opinion on our financial statements can be relied on to fairly present the financial position and results of operations in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. As John indicated, the auditors did not find any adjustments that were necessary to our financials. On that point, I would just like to talk a little bit about adjustments that were made to the initial internal financial statements. As you know, the financial statements that are internally prepared by management in December indicated preliminary. They were subject to year-end adjustment, and there were adjustments that amounted to $7,482 as an increase in the income that was initially reported. Management will be providing finalized financial statements very soon, and all of those figures will be reflected. In regard to why we have adjustments, it's basically for the adjustments that we had this year were for a couple of reasons. One was our bad debt expense. We recognize our bad debts based on accounts that are 120 days past due. We obviously don't know on December 31st what accounts will be past due 120 days from then. At this point, we do know that, and so an adjustment is made to reflect that item. The second area of adjustments dealt with incentive pay that was approved by the board after December 31st, but for the December 31st year. Once again, since that information took place subsequent to December 31st, the management did not have that number when they sent the preliminary reports out, but that information is now known and will be reflected in the final December 31st items. And then the final adjustment was an adjustment to accrued vacation pay. In accrued vacation pay, you have to prepare an analysis to see all of the employees who have earned vacation as of December 31st that had not been paid yet. And so that is a proper accrual, and an adjustment was made for that. As a final comment, and I know Amy hit on this, and I think, you know, I'm repeating some of what she said, but the association has 3 designated funds. We have a restricted capital reserve fund, which is not new. We had that last year. And the balance of that account as of December 31st was approximately $2,800,000. We also have the designated capital replacement fund, which had a balance of approximately $795,000 as of December 31st. And $1,100,000 of the 2020 surplus was transferred to that account in 2021. And the final designated fund is our master plan fund. And that account has approximately, or it had approximately $1,900,000 as of December 31st. All of these designated funds are held in accounts which are segregated from our operating funds. The audited financial statements, which will soon be released, will reflect the full details of all activity related to those designated funds. So anyone who's interested in knowing what the sources of the funds were and what the uses of the funds were can really look at those financial statements, and all the details will be there. That's the end of my report. If anybody has any questions, fire away.
Okay, Vince, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move over to the sales report for May. And we have Gina Lackey from Big Canoe Realty to provide that information today.
Well, good evening. If you are considering selling your home, now is a fantastic time. It's still a really strong seller's market, so nothing has changed there. Homes are selling within hours, days, all of that remains steady. Next slide. Today, there are 29 active listings. One of those is a condo. There are no tree toppers. There are no buck skull cabins available right now. The price range is $194,000 up to $1.299 million. Next slide. In May, there were 18 homes sold. The median price was $455,000. Next slide. There are 141 lot listings today. The price range is $4,500. If you're interested, let me know, up to $385,000. We are up in lot listings from the previous month, and that seems to be a trend over the last several months. Next slide. There were 3 lots sold in May. The median sales price for those lots was $38,000. And just a recap for the year, there were 112 homes sold since January 1st of this year. Last year, there were 111 homes sold in between January and the end of May. So we're really holding steady as far as home sales. Same hot market that it was last year during COVID and all of that. The interesting thing is last year there were this year, there are 38 lots sold since January 1st. Last year, from January 1st to where we are now, there were only 14. So there's a really drastic increase in lot sales. There are 27 homes under construction right now with 4 pending starts. The biggest news here, which I thought was interesting, is the number of builders that are requesting to build. There are 5 new applications in for new builders to start building in here. So there's really a lot of busyness among the builders. The current climate is holding still at $200 and above per square foot to build a typical Big Canoe home. So thought that was interesting this month.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Okay, Jenna, thank you. Appreciate the information.
You bet.
Now we're going to move into the business section of our meeting, and I begin by asking for a motion to approve our May board minutes, May 20th. May have a motion for approval.
Motion. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're going to move into a couple of one approval first and then some ratifications. And the first approval is for funding a portion of our contingency budget for Creek 9. And I'll ask Scott to elaborate on the composition of that request.
Thank you, Candace. When we did our property owner vote for the Creek 9 initiative, we knew that whenever you do, anyone who's done construction here in the mountains, anyone who's planted a plant here in the mountains knows you usually run into rock or some buried thing that you didn't think about. So we had asked for $110,000 of contingency money to be approved as part of the property owner vote. And the board granted that. It was and passed obviously by the property owners with the expectation that if we needed that money, I would come and ask the board for it. And that's what I'm doing here. So across the project is construction is well on its way to being finished. Quite honestly, we have several more T's to do on Creek 9, and we have a black tee to do on Creek 1, and a bunker and some top dressing on greens, and then it's mostly seeding and growing in. So the construction is drawing, actually, we're kind of in the home stretch, and then it's all about grass. In that process of construction, 3 things have happened that require us to tap into the contingency. The first is that the permitting was higher than we expected it to be. And I think honestly, that was a timing issue from the time that we got the vote approved and the time we had to get the permitting done so that we could start the construction, so that we could get the grow-in phase started now. It was kind of like when you rush a passport. Any of you who have done that in your corporate life, me, it costs a lot more money than when you have 2 years to get your passport. Same sort of thing happened there. So some cost on the permitting was higher. Also ran into a few pipes that we didn't expect from a drainage point of view, things that we thought had been replaced years ago that had only been patched years ago that needed then to be wholly replaced so that they would not fail like corrugated metal pipe does, as we all know. Only too well now. That was one thing that came up also. The biggest single thing, quite honestly, and this has nothing to do with Lake Disharu, is part of the Creek 9 project was to dredge Lake Sconti. And you don't want to carry silt far once you dredge it because it's heavy and it fills up dump trucks, and dump trucks cost by the hour and sometimes by the load, depending on how the deal works. And so you don't want to take it very far. So the idea was dredge along Creek 2 and spread that silt material, which is organically rich, and then plant on top of it. Sconti had a lot more silt. Again, before Disharoon happened, Sconti had a lot more silt in it than anyone had an idea about. So therefore, when you spread it out over Creek 2, it created a much bigger grassing area that needed to be done. And so the cost of those 3 things is about a $56,000 need from the $110,000 contingency, if we also made changes to the original scope of the project. The original scope of the project was to do sod everywhere, because with sod, you have an instantaneous golf course. You don't have to worry about thinness in the grass. You don't have to worry about washout from rain. You don't have to worry about scorching as much from heat. All of those things, when you sprig, happen. When you sod, they don't. So the plan originally was to sod. So we were contemplating coming forward to the board and asking for $56,000 after lots of discussions with the architect, Bill Bergen, the construction crew under Cole Sanders, our golf superintendent, Lydell, and the board. We said we should stay with the original plan. It's the right thing to do. Why skimp at the finish line and do something that's going to require us to potentially reseed and have longer cart path, cart path only next spring and all that kind of crazy stuff. Let's do the sod. There was a reason we spec'd it that way. Let's do the sod. So that requires us to ask the board to spend up to $70,000 of the 110 contingency, which is 3% overage on the 2.2 million. And we hope not to spend all of that, but we don't want to keep coming back to you. So we're asking for approval of the board to spend $70,000 of the 110 contingency.
Okay, thanks, Scott. So do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Okay, second?
I'll second it.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? I don't believe so. So, okay, thank you very much, Scott. We have 3 ratifications this afternoon or this evening, and I'm going to go over each of them, and then we'll do one vote for all 3. The first was for Lake County repairs at April 26th, when we knew that we had a contract in place, but we couldn't find the pipe. The board went ahead because we weren't sure exactly what date it was going to be when the pipe was located. The amount stayed the same. It was still less than just under $250,000. So that was approved through ratification in April. This was considered an unbudgeted capital expenditure, and obviously the approval of the board was required. The second was a consult agreement with T4 that Scott discussed just a few minutes ago. This was considered an unbudgeted, non-recurring expense for $48,000, and the board approved that on June 21st. And then last, we received a number of nominations for the President's Award, which will be on July 17th, and the board put forth their recommendation for the nomination, and that was done on June 14th. So could I have a motion to ratify all 3 of these actions?
Yeah, I'll move.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Okay, the last section is the talk about the board meetings for the remainder of 2021. I know we've had some folks that would like to go to live meetings for our monthly board, but we have really poor audio video in the clubhouse. And you can see that by looking at the meetings that were done prior to COVID and just not picking up on the individual speakers. So we have opted through 2021 with the hopes that the AV will be installed in early 22 to have continue to have our Zoom meetings. And again, reminding everybody through July through October, those meetings will be the last Thursday of the month, except for November. We are having a face-to-face town meeting on July 17th. In the chapel, and then another town hall meeting on December 4th, which will also be live. And then we've haven't a date set yet, but sometime in September, we'll have a community coffee in the clubhouse, and everyone will be attending to ask us any questions that they would like. So that concludes that section. And our last topic before we move for adjournment is short-term rental properties. And this is I won't say it's a short discussion, but I have notes here that I'm going to be using as I walk through what's transpired of late. As many of you know, we've been notified of several concerning issues regarding certain rental properties. And now that we're underway with our strategic planning initiatives, time appears to be right for finally addressing them. Last year, several of the board members, including myself, met with 2 primary property managers in Big Canoe, along with a representative of multiple properties, to discuss, review the process they were using to ensure the pertinent rules and regulations were being provided in advance for renters, and the rules and regulations were being followed for gate access, and property owners who lease were registered with AECD and paying their $25 fee to be a registered renter. Later in 2020, we learned from our attorney, who specializes in community associations, that our governing documents must be updated to virtually make any changes to the existing rental program in Big Canoe. And we reported that to the community in the February board meeting led by Amy Truckenbach's discussion. And up to this point, the board had discussed increasing registration fees, establishing a meaningful gate pass fee. And again, we found we couldn't do anything at that time. What we learned is that any material changes also require the Big Canoe POA to submit to be governed by the Georgia POA Act versus just the Georgia property law. And this opt-in process generally takes place by the members of the homeowners association through an amendment to the declaration. And our declaration of covenants require the consent of 2/3 of all eligible votes for these types of changes, which is an incredibly high bar. There are a number of legal benefits to just being a member of the Georgia POA Act, and the Act clarifies all owners and tenants, renters that must comply with all the provisions and declarations of these covenants and rules and regulations. In early 2021, a governance committee was established to review all of our governing documents. And for several reasons, it was decided that changes would be made in the bylaws first. Today, the recommendations of the committee included electronic voting, which are near completion, and will be hopefully submitted for review to our attorney with the projected board approval in August or early September. And then a planned property owner vote this fall, simultaneous with the board of directors election. Because of the high bar to approve changes, this is not undertaken lightly. Any changes we make to the existing covenants regarding rental properties will require certain owners who were already leasing at the time of the amendment will be grandfathered owners and will be allowed to continue to lease for as long as they own their property in Big Canoe. But there may be some additional restrictions placed on the leasing parameters, including limits on the minimum length of rentals per change in the Georgia POA Act that became effective January 1st, 2021. So we'll be gathering recommendations from the Strategic Planning Committee and evaluating if this is the general will of the community, and then working with the Governing Documents Committee to see if restrictions should apply and what should be the appropriate minimum and location specific. The education process is important in terms of, one, proposing changes to the bylaws and covenants and minimum votes required to pass these changes. So there will be considerable information in more detail as this begins to unfold, hopefully in the fall. Other changes that we, of course, want to consider when this is done are the rules and regulations related to tenants and fines for violations. We're also going to be reaching out to the counties to make sure we sync in with their registration and occupancy limits. And then lastly, review the amenity fees that we charge for our guests and tenants. So what are we doing today to help ensure that renters adhere to our covenants and rules? In early 2021, Scott required the rules and regulations be conveyed to renters at the gate when they apply for a gate pass. And I think this seems to be working well. And in 2021, the budget provided for additional public safety staff. And only recently, we've had some promising interviews to hopefully allow with additional staff for some time spent patrolling the community. And lastly, public safety responds to all the property owner complaints, concerns, and they follow the rules and regulations and maintain a detailed log of calls that they handle. And very importantly, my last comment is that we're reviewing the establishment of a process to determine all properties being leased are registered with the AECD and the counties in a multi-pronged approach. So those are our final comments for this evening, and certainly more to come over the next weeks in terms of information that we'll have and update the community on our progress in moving towards a vote in mid to late fall. Any questions?
Candace, we do want to make sure that we request from property owners to report any situation that they feel is in violation.
Yes, that's very important. Thanks, Bob. Any other comments? Okay, well, if none, I'll make a motion for adjournment of the meeting. Motion.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Okay, Tim, we'll move to questions, property owner questions.
Yes, we have a couple of questions and one comment.
Okay.
Okay, Stacy Johnson, 5589, asked about the package porch. Scott said certain packages are not showing up at the porch. Please consider sending all packages to the porch, not only the oversized ones. Many other people are having difficulties, including dead deliveries because of delayed handoff.
So Stacy, this is what you're saying is exactly what we want to have happen. So our goal when we set this up was that any package that was too big to fit in a locker would be left at the package porch. And then small packages would go into the lockers up at the post office where you pick up your mail. So that way you would never, as a property owner, have to interact with the storeroom, the mailroom part of the post office, because that's where people aren't sure when they're going to be there and they're busy and whatever. We're probably 80% of the way there. The last 20% is what we're going to be talking to Postmaster Jordan about in a couple weeks. We don't control that. The post office does. So as I said, this was kind of like, let's get it going. Let's see where our trip points are. Let's have a follow-up meeting with Mr. Jordan and say, what's keeping us from getting that last 20% of the packages down at the package porch? So that is absolutely our goal. I think we will get there. This is a crawl, walk, run. We're at the walk phase now, I think. And we'll hopefully try to bring it home here in the next couple months, certainly before it gets too crazy in the fall. So agree 100%. I just can't make that happen by flipping a switch, because I work through the U.S. Postal Service to make that happen. So.
All right, Linda Katachuk, lot 557, asked, what is the plan to remediate the silt buildup in Lake Scotty between Creek 2 and 3 caused by that Lake Disharoon drainage issue?
Thank you, Linda. It's a great question. So we have a tremendous amount of silt between the rock slide and the silt fence, that yellow barrier that we have out there, which was working really well, actually, until we just got our last 5 inches of rain in 24 hours. And then the amount of flow going into Lake Scotty was so huge, just bypassed the barrier, which is why Lake Sconty looks muddy again. So the plan is, as soon as we have Lake Disharoon filled again, we have already been getting quotes from experts in dredging. And literally, given the volume of material that we're going to have to take out of the lake, they will be setting up actually a dredging cleanup facility probably at the bottom of the rock slide. So imagine a vacuum dredge going underneath Wilderness Parkway, vacuuming out large quantities of silt that is taken to a mobile, believe it or not, mobile processing plant, where they sort it and pull out the larger particulate matter and things and dry it and dump it, and then we start hauling it. And you're talking about many weeks of hauling silt out of Big Canoe. And so we are also working with local farmers, et cetera, looking at other places besides the borrow pit, which is the obvious place to put this. This is where we usually put all of our storm damage on our mulch and things like that. And we have room for it, but if we can find better uses for this, we will do it. The problem, as I said before, is it gets exponentially more expensive as you haul it further. So we don't want to go very far past the borrow pit. And this is going to be quite an operation, because Lake Disharoon had 50 years of silt in the bottom of it. And, you know, this has just been a horrendous year. I wish we could take all this water and send it out to Lake Powell in California, because they're dying. They have no water. And we have 4 inches of rain times 4. I think we've had 4 events like that. And every time that's happened, huge amounts of silt have just washed out of that lake. So it's going to be quite an operation. We expect it to start late summer, early fall. And that's really limited by the availability of the type of equipment that we're talking about and the few vendors who actually do this stuff for a living. So, and of course we have to get Lake Dishroom filled up again, but I think that's going to happen pretty quick as long as we get 3 days of sunshine, like I talked about before. So, not easy and not short and not cheap, but we will get it done as quickly as we can.
All right, and from Roger Hackler, lot 8107, thanks to the board for addressing the falsehoods being published regarding Big Canoe. Kudos to Amy for the excellent response and inside the gates regarding the financial status.
Thanks, Roger.
And that's concludes the questions and comments from the audience.
Oops, one more, Tim.
We got some late entries. Jim McKinney, 5536. What's the number of rental properties and what is the percentage of total residences?
We have 2759 homes as of May, and who knows on rental homes.
Well, we know we have something on the order of 100 and depending on the day, 150 to 180 folks that have gone through the proper channels to basically fill out all the forms, get them on file with Trina and the AECD, et cetera. So that would be 10% of the, less than 10% of the rental property of the main homes. What we don't know is how many folks are not following those procedures and are just throwing their houses up on VRBO and probably not following Dawson County or Pickens County procedures either. So we're working with some folks to see how we can identify those folks that are not following the rules and regulations, and then what actions do we take about that. But the estimates vary somewhere between 150 and 300 rental properties probably out of the 2,700 homes. So not as huge as you might expect given the issues that we sometimes have on the weekends, but you're putting different people in a lot of those houses over and over and over again. So that's where the source of problems often comes from. And I would also say some of the rental agents do an excellent job of getting our rules and regulations in the hand of the renters and of taking care of problems as they arise, and work very hard with the POA to make sure that, you know, we can live in harmony. The problem is there's a bunch of other people who choose not to follow the procedures, and those are the ones we're going to have to dig into. We are digging into.
All right, we have one more. Robert Adams, lot 1044. Great meeting, thank you. Missing Regis. Okay.
You didn't like my Regis impersonation? Regis is on vacation. He is actually on vacation in the great Pacific Northwest. Why he went there when he could have stayed here to see the, you know, but something about Glacier National Park or something I think he wanted to see. So he's back soon.
Well, that's great news about Regis, and that ends the questions and comments.
Okay, thanks, Tim. I think this concludes our meeting for tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.